Hi, welcome to another video chat for Management 6931, Managing Talent and Culture, Leadership, Engagement, and Performance. And today we're going to be talking about performance. All right, so wanted to chat with you guys about just how we make some decisions about the research that we invest our time in. So, look, in an age of social media, it's really easy to share a lot of ideas. I can tell you, I'm on social media, I am one to share a lot of things. I don't always stop and look at, hey, what was the genesis of what I'm sharing? So I have probably been guilty at times of sharing memes that credited quotes to people who maybe have borrowed them from somebody else. And so just a word of caution that I'm giving to myself, reminding myself as much as I'm giving to you guys, that it's really important to know, especially as you continue your studies. Some of you may, after an MBA, decide you want to go on and get a PhD. And you'll definitely do a deeper dive in PhD studies around this idea. But I think in just even being consumers of information, as you continue to develop as leaders in your organization, knowing where the information that you're using is coming from, and just this idea of kind of these, what I consider to be like 3 tiers. And this did come out of the introduction from our 8 steps to high performance by Mark Efron. And I know that this is something that's really important to Mark. He's in several of his books. He points out the importance of starting with the science. I was first introduced to that idea from him in reading One Page Talent Management, which I think is a really great book. So, research. What is research? Research is a study, right? And studies can be conducted by individuals. I conducted studies during my PhD or during my doctoral studies. You can also, a lot of consulting firms do conduct research. White papers are often used as a way to market or promote. So companies are often doing research that they then write up white papers and use those to promote a product or promote a service. And so, an individual or consulting firm, and look, the reports that they put out, these white papers, definitely may in fact be true. They're reporting what they actually found, but they're not providing really the research details. They're not making it so their study is necessarily replicatable. And if not replicatable, it may not be reliable, right? You guys have studied both validity and reliability, right? Valid means that it actually answers the question that you're asking, and reliable means that it can be repeated. So research can be done and can be, reported accurately and with validity and still not be totally reliable. Then there's taking research to the next level where we'd actually call it science. Science, you'll recall the 5 steps of the scientific method, right? Where you determine or state your hypothesis, and then you gather data and you research. And in this case, right, when it's true science, you are following those steps, and you would likely report your results in a peer-reviewed journal. Right. And so you're allowing others in your peer group who have studied similar things to you to then look into your experiment, look at the steps of your study, and judge it critically to say, yeah, we think that this study was well designed and well carried out. And that's what the peer review process determines before it gets published in that academic journal. Then there is, in fact, conclusive science, right? And this is where it can be replicated, right? So you take that same experiment and it can be done tens or even hundreds of times. And almost every time the conclusion would be the same, right? And so this is how you know that it's conclusive, right? And so you think of like the first thing that comes to mind when we think of conclusive science is like the Food and Drug Administration, right? And how they're wanting to see that a study is done, a study is replicatable, and that in fact that every person who is subjected to a particular drug, a particular food, right, will have the same reaction each time. And so these are the different levels of study that you want to be thinking about when you are consuming information, right? So is this just one person or one small group's study? Or has it been thoroughly examined? And is it replicatable? Have the conclusions come up time and time again? All right. So you guys have read the 8 Steps to High Performance. You've completed your quiz, did a great job with it. Thank you very much. And you've each described just your interactions with the ideas of the book. And we know that step 1, set big goals. Step 2, behave to perform. Step 3, grow yourself faster. And step 4, connect. And some of you have described just your own thoughts and interactions and how you believe that some of these steps come easy to you or are steps that you're working on. I wanted to, for the sake of today's video chat, talk a little bit about step 5, maximize your fit. I think this is one that often gets overlooked or maybe just we haven't thought about. Look, we all need our jobs, our careers to provide for ourselves, provide for our families. This is the way that we in our capitalistic society have come to know this is, how we can make a way for ourselves economically. And so oftentimes we choose a career path, we attend university, college, we get that degree, we go on typically to perform work oftentimes in a similar career that we studied for. Oftentimes we get degrees in areas where we don't then continue our career. But nonetheless, that college degree really has helped to catapult us into a career choice. When we are interviewing for jobs, at least certainly in past generations, I think it has been changing in recent years. But we haven't always considered our fit in the organization. We consider our fit with the job itself. We certainly read the job description. We look at how the job is described in the post. More and more, we want to know more about the company. We consider, is this a product or a service that we feel good about and that we can personally be invested in? And I think taking it just one step further, right? As pointed out in the 8 Steps to High Performance, the science says companies change faster than people do. And they require different capabilities as time goes on, right? And oftentimes faster than the leaders can change. And so what does that mean for us as individuals, right? It does mean that we need to continually be upgrading our own skills, right? I congratulate all of you. You are here in this program getting an executive MBA at Florida Atlantic University because you know that you need to continually upgrade your skills in order to be successful. I would imagine that some of you are in this program sponsored by your organization. I think that's great, right? That means that your organization is also signaling to you that continuing to keep upgraded skills is an important part of building a career with them. What we also know from the science is that when you fit better with the company's strategy and their change needs, you'll be more engaged and you'll be a higher performer. Right? And so if companies want to have the highest performers on their team, the way to do that is to make sure that they are inviting people to join them that fit. Now, I know that this idea of fit can sometimes get messy if you start to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. because we don't want to have an organization where we use the idea of fit as a way to say we only want a certain style or a certain way of being, right? We certainly want continued authenticity. We know that having a diverse workforce makes us more successful. And so, this is not to say that we should design company cultures and organizations that exclude that important diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we are looking at fit with the company's strategy and change needs, right? So we're being very specific about how we're targeting this idea of fit. We each fit best, according to the science, in different company scenarios based on our personality, our career paths, our personal preferences, right? And none of us fits best in every scenario. And I think we've often had experiences individually where we understand that we can fit for a time and that time can change, right? Back to this idea that companies change faster often than people do. And so you may have, I remember when I was entering my career with Burger King, and I joined them in the early part of 2000, I think, or 2000s. I think I joined them in 2004 or 2005. Um, and I genuinely, in my first year with Burger King, I was so happy there. I was so aligned. It was such a great fit in terms of strategy and change needs. It was just a really, really great time in my career. If you would have talked to me then, I would have told you unequivocally, I will retire from Burger King. I had no plans to move on from that situation, that team, that organization. It was such a great fit for me. And then in 2010, Burger King was purchased by a venture capital group. I continued to work for Burger King for 2 years under that venture capital group, and we went public again after their investment. And again, it was a really great time in my career. I learned so much in those final 2 years. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But after 6 total years with the company, I recognized that the company had changed and I had also grown and changed, and I was no longer a fit there. And so I was not going to be retiring from Burger King. I was going to move on and I was going to do other things. And I left in 2012. And, here we are 12 years later. And I have had amazing career opportunities and, grateful that I did have the opportunity to learn everything that I learned, have all the experiences that I did there in those 6 years, but it was time to make a change and time to move on. And I've moved on a couple of times since then. So we want to understand a few things about thinking about how we maximize our fit, right? When we're choosing the company that we want to be a part of. So first, we need to understand how we naturally fit into the company's life cycle, right? Do we want to be a part of an entrepreneurial startup company, as I know that is the best fit for me? Or do we want to be a part of a more established company with mature processes? And I have colleagues who I know feel very comfortable in a place where there are mature processes and that they are a part of continuous improvement in those processes. That's not to say that it's stale just because it's mature. It's still growing and innovating, but it's not that entrepreneurial startup environment that many of us are suited for. Understand where the company is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years and have a plan for how you're going to continue to advance and track with those changes. And then learn and demonstrate the capabilities and the behaviors that you need to perform well in that setting, right? So this is one of the things that you can do, this analysis of how you naturally fit and what the changes are going to be, because remember that company is going to change quickly. And so you have to be very intentional about your change and in the ways that you want to grow if this is a company that you want to continue to stay with. All right. So we'll recall that in 8 Steps to High Performance, Efron gave us a 2-section quiz that we can take and then plot on this fit matrix, right? If you don't remember, you can go back to pages 120 and 121 in the book, and the quiz, surveys will be there, the questions will be there, and then you can work through how to plot it out on the fit matrix, right? So you're going to answer the fit with strategy questions in section 1. Then the fit with change questions in section 2, and then map your answers. Right? And so I think the recommendation was to put a little X to map your answers as it related to strategy and change, right? Are you leaning more toward efficiencies, right? Are you leaning more toward innovations, right? Is the work that you want to do, typical change, right? Not that there isn't change, right? But it's just more typical in like I said, like even mature companies change, continuous improvement, right? But that's more that typical change versus like that really high paced, fast change of maybe a startup organization. All right, so you've mapped all your answers, and then you're going to map your current company's change and strategy based on your opinion, right? So you're gonna, gather information, really think about what's being presented in company meetings, what can you read in the investor relations decks, right? What is available to you to get information to really determine where does the company sit? So, you'll recall in the book, right, that these quadrants had labels, right? So high innovation, high from a strategy perspective, and high change, right? That's that entrepreneurial company, right? Probably startup, maybe even a founder of the concept, the service, the product leading the way, right? If you are high change, but more from an efficiency strategy approach, right? That's that revival company, right? That is the company that's reinventing itself, right? It may have mature processes, but in order to keep up with the times, in order to stay ahead in the marketplace, they might be in a particular high change timing, right? And this is why the company's not going to stay in these quadrants forever, right? They are going to move. Because in that lower efficiency, lower change, right? You're going to have that economical company, right? This is the company that does have mature processes, probably not creating a lot of change or a lot of innovation, really just able to keep replicating and keep doing things the way mostly they've done them, right? A lot of consistency, a lot of efficiency, a lot of predictability. And that it can be a very comforting culture to be a part of, right? And then you have your highly operational, right? Again, typical processes, highly repeatable, very steady as you go, right? But maybe also highly innovative. Maybe this is because, right, innovation is just a way of life for this organization. You might say that a company like Apple likely has a very operational aspect to it, right? Not, even though they're highly innovative in their strategy, always looking for what's next. That is like an ingrained part of their process, right? Innovation is actually for them very replicatable. They know when they're coming out with updates, right? They have a cadence. There's a lot of repeatable process. So once you've mapped that out, you know where you have a natural fit and you know where your company sits on the fit matrix, then you can determine if there are any gaps between what's natural for you and where your company is. And then you make a plan, right? So that plan may be that you are staying with that company and you want to make changes to the way you're operating in order to be a more natural fit. Or you may plan, as I did in the past, to make a change, to leave the company, to go find an organization where you feel like you would be a greater fit, right? Okay. So the next step that I wanted to talk with you guys about a little bit is step 6. This came up, and it always does. Every time I read this book with folks, this idea of faking it comes up. And I have to tell you, I have colleagues who feel so strongly that this is just a really bad message to send to folks today, right? I certainly have spoken a lot about psychological safety and the need to present a work environment as a leader where people feel safe to be their real and authentic self. And then I come with this book, right? Where this author very clearly says it's not always about just showing up and being yourself. Sometimes you have to fake it. And you know what? I think that this is something for it's a great discussion point, right? I don't know that I agree with author Efron on this particular point. Look, I know him personally. I've had the opportunity to have discussions with him. I've attended classes that he's taught. And I know that his intentions are very, very positive. I know that he is really committed to, using the science in his work as a consultant on leadership to organizations. So, he would say, right, that the science makes this point, right, that different types of behaviors will benefit us in different situations. And so, what does that mean in terms of being our authentic self, right? And even when we talk about, for example, situational leadership, right? I am somebody who has taught leaders for years. The idea of situational leadership, right, is that to be a great leader, you have to show up as the leader that your people need, not necessarily as the leader you are most comfortable being. So I think this is the same kind of point, right? Like my leadership style naturally is one of very high trust, one of support and coaching, not a lot of direction. But if I have a member of my team who is early in their career, who doesn't necessarily know the ways of human resource management, who has not, let's say, for instance, designed a benefits plan in the past. If I just delegate to them, hey, go design this benefits plan, I'm just going to stand back here and coach and support, right? I'm not going to be directive because that's just not my style. Then I am likely doing that person a huge disservice, right? Because they're likely to make mistakes. They're likely to need to be directed, right? And so different types of behaviors will benefit me in that situation. I need to come out of my natural style, the author would say, and fake it, right? To be a more directive leader because situationally, that's what my team member needs from me, right? So it's not the idea that I'm trying to fake who I am as a human being, right? Or to anyhow be not like myself, right? But this is to say that I choose a different set of behaviors. I also teach this as a part of DISC, right? The DISC communication style profiles, right? I may be naturally a high influential, high direct leader, right, in my communication style. But there are times when I need to choose to be more deliberate, getting into the details, right? Not flying so high as my DI natural style would be. So the science also says we are capable of changing our behaviors, right? Dramatic changes aren't easy, right? They absolutely require a lot of effort. And again, that's what I talk about when oftentimes when I talk to people about their DISC profiles. It takes a lot of effort for me to change my style and be more detail oriented, right? I'm likely to miss the details. Some of you may be thinking, yes, and you have in Canvas missed some details. And you'd be right, right? Because those aren't strengths. I have to put a lot of effort into making sure that I hit the details. And so, is it possible for me? Absolutely. Can I be successful? Absolutely. Am I faking it a little bit? Yes, I am, right? And so, also, the science says the shift from behaving like an emerging leader to behaving like an effective leader is especially important to make at the right time, right? What does that mean? What in the world does that mean, right? Sometimes this idea of faking it, right? Sometimes it's like, look, I'm not experienced at this. I don't necessarily know how to do this, but my team needs me to show up for them. And so I am going to show up as an effective leader, though I feel inexperienced at doing it. So, having gotten hopefully a little bit more comfortable with the fact that this chapter is not asking you to, or this step is not asking you to be inauthentic, right? But to balance what it means to be your authentic self and also be most effective in the behaviors and the skills that you're using as a manager. And so you want to understand the key behaviors that will most benefit your performance in different scenarios, and then show up with those behaviors and do those things that are going to help you be most effective. Recognize that faking it, as the book says, is just a part of the behavior change process. It's the first round of practicing new behaviors, right? So it's not natural to you yet. That's what it means by faking it, right? Like it's not, you're just not, this isn't a skill that you've gained yet. And so, you're trying to, you're practicing, right? You're learning for the first time. You're going to assess your career stage, your development needs, and the environment, right? And this goes back a little bit to fit. If you find that you are having to fake it more than not, then you may not be in the right environment, right? So it may not be a fake it problem, it may be a fit problem, right? So make sure that you're in an environment where you do have your greatest fit from a strategy and a change perspective, and then you are less likely to be faking it on a regular basis. But when you're learning a new skill, there might be that marginal time of when you need to fake it a little bit. All right. And then, of course, there were the additional 2 steps. Commit your body, right? It's about being fit, getting enough sleep, just the importance of how whole health really does affect your performance overall. And then avoiding distractions, right? Great idea. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this video chat. And I'll see you again soon.